Do you ever wake up during the night? Perhaps you have a drink of water and go back to sleep. Maybe you go and wake up someone else. In our story today, a little boy called Samuel keeps waking up. Samuel lives in the temple where Eli is the priest. His job is to help Eli, not keep waking him up. Let's open the book and read Samuel Hears a Voice. Now that God's people were living in their own land, there were so many things he wanted to tell them. How to be happy, how to take care of each other, how to protect themselves from their enemies. So God decided to choose someone to speak for him. Someone he could talk to, who would then go and talk to the people. Someone called a prophet. God looked and looked all over the land of Israel, eager to pick just the right person. And finally, he found him in the village of Shiloh, in the house of Eli the priest, a little boy. Samuel, God called one night. Samuel, I want to talk with you. Samuel sat up and rubbed his sleepy eyes. He'd never heard God's voice before, and he thought that old Eli was calling him. Samuel stumbled into Eli's room to see what he wanted, but Eli just shooed him back to bed. Samuel, God called again. Samuel, listen. Samuel was confused this time and a little scared, so he crept back into Eli's room. I told you, boy, yawned the old priest. I didn't call you. Now off to bed. Samuel didn't know what to think as he crawled under his covers. But when God called Samuel, Samuel, for the third time, he knew what to do. He dashed back to Eli just as fast as he could. Samuel, sighed Eli, if either of us is going to get any sleep tonight, we need to find out who's calling you. And I have an idea who it might be. So the next time you hear that voice, I don't want you to come running in here. Instead, I want you to say, Speak, Lord, and I will listen. Samuel's eyes opened wide. You mean it's God who's calling me? Do as I tell you, said Eli, and we'll find out. So Samuel went back to bed. God called his name again. This time Samuel stayed there and listened to God, and his eyes opened wide with wonder. And from that moment until Samuel was himself an old man, God talked to Samuel, giving him messages to pass on to the people. And just like the first time, God's messages never failed to leave him wide-eyed with wonder. Samuel was called a prophet. Can anyone remember what a prophet was? The story explains it like this: someone who God chose to speak for him, someone he could talk to, who would then go and talk to the people and pass on his messages. There are many prophets in the Bible, and Samuel was one of the first. Close your eyes and imagine what God's voice might have sounded like to Samuel. Do you think it was very loud and booming, or was it very soft and gentle? Now I'm going to say a prayer, and if you want to make it your prayer, you can say it with me. Dear God, thank you for talking to Samuel, even though he was a little boy. Help us to remember that you talk to everybody, children and grown-ups. Please help us to listen to you today. Amen.